Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Got His Quirk 9 years too late? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. The word Deku refers to a wooden doll that really doesn't have any use. The word Deku is also the nickname Izuku goes by. It makes sense, Izuku is pretty useless. That's probably why the whole world hates him. Okay, maybe that's a little far-fetched. Maybe not the whole world, but everyone around him sure does. Or at least they don't care about him. He's a pushover that can't seem to have a single ounce of defiance in him. He stutters all the time, he's clumsy, and can't even make a single friend. But at least he has a quirk that, oh wait, he doesn't have that either. On the bright side, he's smart and good with mechanics. Though Izuku's not sure that being smart and knowing his way around machinery is nearly enough to make his dream to become a hero, just like All Might, one that saves others in need with a smile no matter how hard or bad things get, a reality. Yet he still chases his silly, seemingly unachievable dream, ignoring the people that tell him he can't do it, because that's what All Might would do. So he won't let others stop him from becoming a hero. Even if Izuku has to do it quirkless, he will save others with a smile, and bring them the hope All Might always brought him. But still you'd think the universe would at least give Izuku a levitation quirk like his aunt, but clearly he couldn't have that either. Now that he's thinking of her, he's pretty sure she doesn't like him. In fact, Izuku's pretty sure the alcoholic woman hates his guts. There was a time she loved him, where she'd visit his mom and dad and play with him, but then a year after Izuku's heart shattered at the news he would be quirkless, his father died in a villain attack. Yeah, that was the start of his life's downfall. Then his mother spiraled into a deep depression out of grief. She was always crying, always in bed, always so broken. Yet she still forced herself out of bed to take care of Izuku, because she loved him. His aunt would always check up on him and his mother, every week without fail. She'd help take care of Izuku in the house, she'd help Inko take care of herself and always stayed positive, because his aunt thought maybe that would help, so Izuku kept that attitude too, thinking it'd help his mother. And for a minute, a now 8-year-old Izuku and his aunt Chihiro truly believed it was working. His mother was suddenly getting up from bed and spending time with Izuku and his aunt, going on walks together, watching movies, going to the park, all simple activities, but they brought joy to Izuku and his aunt. It brought joy to them knowing the woman was getting better. But it seems maybe that was just his mother's final goodbye. Because on July 15th, Izuku's 9th birthday, his mother jumped off a building. Then his aunt, who got full custody over him, got into drinking away her grief. Unlike his mother, the woman did not give a DMN about taking care of Izuku, or their house for that matter. It seemed that his mother's suicide was the thing that made her snap, and Izuku was the one that had to deal with the result. The woman at first tried to be nice to Izuku as she always was, but Izuku could tell she was forcing herself. For some reason she didn't love Izuku anymore. The moment he moved in with his aunt, the love she'd always given him vanished. Soon the woman stopped trying to be nice and became cold towards Izuku, then she started drinking, and she went from clearly disliking him but still taking care of him, to hating him and leaving the boy to care for himself along with the house, then to eventually hitting him. Izuku's life revolving around his dream to become a hero didn't help her likability towards him, seeing as the woman hated heroes. He wasn't sure why she went from being a caring auntie to suddenly making him fend for himself at the young age 9 years old. Or why she stopped loving him in general. Izuku wishes he could have at least gotten his aunt's love, because clearly the rest of the world isn't planning on giving him any. And Izuku can't forget about that silly little crush he has on who's probably his biggest bully and childhood friend, the one and only Katsuki Bakugu, or as Izuku calls him, Kaken. But can you really blame Izuku for loving the boy? He's amazing. He's got an amazing quirk, grades, looks, he's got confidence in everything he does, and then there's that undeniable fire in his eyes that craves for victory. His whole being represents victory in Izuku's eyes. He refuses to give up and lose. In fact, he treats losing as if it's not even an option. And he's not afraid to stand up for himself, something Izuku doesn't think he'll ever be able to do. But man, is he an egoistical blonde bastard. He thinks he's better than everyone just because he's got a strong, flashy quirk, and he makes DMN sure people know that. And he also treats Izuku like total shit. He never fails to insult Izuku or tell him how he'll never be a hero. Especially the hero part, it's like Katsuki thinks he'll set off a nuclear bomb the moment he graduates from a hero course. He's been bullying Izuku since word got out he was quirkless, seeming to completely forget about how happy they were as best friends, about all their fun times that had Izuku begging his parents for playdates. Katsuki showed a shred of mercy as he stopped tormenting Izuku for a while, after his dad passed, and for another while after his mom passed. The point is, Katsuki may be an a-hole, but he's undeniably amazing. And even though Izuku's mind finds Katsuki to be a mean a-hole, his heart that still clings to the past can't help but love him, hoping that maybe one day the blonde would change. How annoyingly bittersweet. If only the rest of Izuku's life could be like that, bittersweet. Instead, the universe has done all it could to make sure his life is simply bitter. Izuku doesn't hope that it'd just be sweet, because who is kidding, he's Izuku Midoriya, the universe hates him, it'd be silly to hope for that. Then again, it's also kind of silly to dream of being a hero, but the boy still. Midoriya. The sound of his not-so-happy math teacher has Izuku quickly springing up from his slouched position. He must have zoned out while deep in thought. Izuku almost falls back from his chair with how fast he sat up, earning a few mocking giggles from the class that has his cheeks red from embarrassment and the familiar feeling of anxiety entering him with all eyes on him. Sorry, sensei. The teacher narrows his eyes at Izuku, clicking his tongue before speaking with a strict tone. Sorry won't fix the fact you're sleeping in. My class. Since you have the time to be taking naps, I'm sure you could spare some extra time and come up and answer this question. But he wasn't even sleeping? He wants to, but refrains from correcting his teacher. He'll just get into more trouble. Izuku bites the inside of his cheek, his gaze dropping to the floor. He can hear more giggles from his peers around him, not helping with how his heart rate speeds up. How he wishes they'd shut up. He lets out a shaky breath as he slowly walks up to the board and looks at the problem. A pretty easy one, Izuku knows this. He even takes those online college courses since he's got nothing better to do. So why isn't he writing? Maybe it's because his heart's beating so fast he can't seem to think straight. Or could it be his sweaty, trembling hands that won't seem to move? Or maybe it's the eyes of the class boring into his back, watching and judging his every move. Midoriya. Stop standing there and answer the question. Or do you not know how to solve such a simple equation? It's obvious what he meant to say was, or can you not even do that? And I just, And there it is. Useless Deku's infamous stuttering. It's pathetic. So pathetic sometimes Izuku wishes he wasn't aware of the fact. You're wasting valuable class time, Midoriya. Go back to your seat, and if you couldn't even answer this question, get a tutor. When your quirkless intelligence is needed. Looks like another translation is needed. What the teacher meant to say before all the sugarcoating was, you're already weak, try not being stupid as well. Izuku quickly rushes back to his seat, letting out a breath he didn't know he was holding in as his heart begins to calm. How embarrassing that he couldn't even answer a simple math problem. Seems the name Deku really does match him perfectly. A useless name for a useless boy. The teacher checks the time, giving Izuku one last glare before looking back at the class. Class ends in around 8 minutes, and while I usually continue teaching until the bell rings, I have something important to talk to you all about. As you know, next year you all have high school, and it's about time you start thinking about your futures. So I could pass out some aptitude tests, but who am I kidding? I know you all plan being heroes. Izuku buries his head into his arms as his classmates activate their quirks and cheer. Katsuki goes on about he's applying tea. Izuku wishes he could do the same, boast about his quirk, be more confident, be stronger. He honestly wishes he was anyone but him. But it won't ever happen. Because Izuku is far too much of a, how would Katsuki put it, too much of a nervous, anxiety-driven hero wannabe quirkless loser. What a mouthful. How does the blonde manage to say it so much? From where Izuku's head is buried and hidden in his arms, Izuku's can't help but feel jealous. Because why'd it have to be him? Why'd he have to be the one with all the short ends of the stick? Why couldn't he have ended up with the strength needed to protect others, the strength that would earn him love, the strength that would get people to have his back and actually give a DMN about him. The strength needed to be something. Oh yeah, Izuku, aren't you also applying for UA? What's up with this DMN teacher and interrupting his internal dialogue? Izuku flinches hard, the silence that forms is loud, but don't worry, the mocking laughter that follows is even louder. Izuku slowly lifts his head before speaking. Well, they're open to accepting quirkless students, so I thought maybe it's worth a dash. Izuku is interrupted by an angry loud scoff and loud explosion being set off on his desk. This time Izuku doesn't flinch, no, this time he falls off the chair, landing on the cold, dirty floor of their classroom with a grunt. Izuku doesn't have time to think about how embarrassing that was, because at the moment he has an angry blonde looming over him, setting off tiny explosions in his hand. Izuku's eyes widen in fear, and in anxiety he's all too familiar with grips his heart. He can hear the snickers coming from his other classmates, he can see them all looking at him. The unwanted attention from his peers makes Izuku's throat clench up. He felt so small, so weak, so helpless. But honestly, Izuku felt that way all the time. Deku, out of all the extras in this room, you're the worst. You actually think they'd let you in? The idea is almost as pathetic as your quirkless nerdy all might wanna be, but the only one of us in this rundown shitty school getting into UA is gonna be me. Izuku quickly backed up against the wall, hands in the air in surrender, hoping to calm Katsuki down through the horrible feeling in his gut the blonde just loved to give him. No, Kaken, wait. I'm not trying to compete or anything, I just think it's worth a try. Izuku pipes down for a moment, looking down at his hands, his wide fear-filled eyes narrowing with a hopeful tinge of determination. A small nervous smile accompanying them. Because I also want to be a hero, I always have, and maybe even if I'm quirkless, I think can become one. With enough training maybe I'll have a chance. Izuku looks up, hoping to have reached someone. Unsurprisingly, it reached absolutely no one. Once again the class was laughing at him, though Katsuki still looks like he wants to murder Izuku with that scary scowl of his. Though personally, to Izuku they all looked scary. Like monsters looming over him. Monsters that just couldn't seem to wipe those judging looks off their faces and shut the hell up. You're even more pathetic than I thought. Just give up on it, Deku. Save your worthless but some embarrassment. You clearly have enough of it. I mean, look at you, trembling on the ground like the pathetic loser you are. If you can't even defend yourself, how the hell do you think you'll be able to defend others? Pooh, stupid, useless, defenseless. Deku wants to be a hero. What a joke. Do us all a favor, and stick to becoming some low-life accountant. But Izuku doesn't want to be an accountant. Izuku doesn't want to be anything that isn't a hero. Izuku clenches his fists, looking down as tears threaten to spill from his eyes. Katsuki was likely gonna comment on it, but for once the teacher actually interferes, telling the class to quiet down. Though it was obvious the teacher was sneaking in a quiet snicker too. Izuku wonders how much more of this he'll have to go through until his heart lets go of Katsuki. Seems that villain attack from this morning is all over the news. Hard ignore it. Giant. I can't forget to write notes on this. With how much this blew up, I'm sure I'll be able to get some more info on the heroes at the scene too. Izuku mutters to himself as he packs up. He wanted to hurry home so he would have time to jot down some more notes in his journal. Today's cleanup day, the day where he clears all of his aunt's empty cheap alcohol bottles that she ends up piling up throughout the week. Since his aunt's either glued to the couch, at work, drinking, or watching TV, nothing really gets done around the house if Izuku isn't the one doing it. So Izuku tries to clean the apartment when he can or when he feels like it, which isn't often. That's why the boy dedicates at least one day a week to cleaning his home. But if he's honest with you, Izuku cleans the place mostly in the hopes that his aunt wouldn't get in a bad mood and because he hopes maybe his home would feel a little more like a real home and not just an unkept apartment building with a tension that can make one suffocate. But no matter how much he cleans the apartment, it doesn't really feel like a home. Anyways, Izuku picks up the last of his things to put away, but he takes a moment to appreciate it. It was his journal, which he refers to as his hero analysis for the future. He's been working on it for a few months now. This isn't his first one either. There are 4 more completely filled ones hidden under his bed. This one has a 5 on it. He smiles softly as he holds up his journal. As long as I have this, I can study the combat moves other heroes have, and use them to help me make my dream into a really. Hey Deku, just so you know we're not done with our little conversation. And say goodbye to said precious journal. Because the one and only blonde egotistical a-hole, Katsuki Bakugo just snatched it right from Izuku's hands. As per usual, his lackeys aren't far behind him. What is it, his diary? Let's name this guy, lackey 1 hashtag. Even better, he's taking notes on how to be a hero. And this one can be lackey 2 hashtag. With his journal in Katsuki's hands, Izuku can for sure say has never stood up from a chair faster. Yeah, real funny guys, but please give it back now. Seriously, please give it back. Izuku can't bear for that journal to get stolen for Katsuki and his lackey's personal entertainment, or worse, get destroyed. The blonde looks at Izuku for a moment, then back at his notebook. Good news, Izuku won't have to worry about what's going to happen to his journal. Bad news, he won't have to worry because Katsuki already exploded it. Izuku's heart stops for a moment as Katsuki walks to the window, throwing the thing out of the building like it's a worthless piece of trash. Kakano. Why would you do that? Izuku shrieks, rushing to the window to see it landed right in the pond below. Well, at least any lasting effects of the blonde's quirk will be cooled off. That's right, Izuku, think positively, so that you don't end up at the nearest hardware store buying a rope and searching up tutorials on how to tie a noose. Most first-string heroes show their potential early on. One glance at them and you'd know they're destined for greatness. And clearly I fit all the criteria. I'm gonna be the only one from this crappy junior high to get into UA, and when I do, people will realize I'm the real thing, the one who's going to surpass All Might himself. And that's not ego talking. And this is totally related to Izuku's question, but on a less sarcastic note, it is definitely ego talking. An ego Izuku's self-loathing but really needs. The smell of his uniform burning reaches Izuku when Katsuki puts a hand on his shoulder, using his quirk to burn Izuku a little. Izuku flinches, and the blonde gives him a fake smile. His next words carry a sweet tone, though it's obviously fake. A word of advice, Deku, don't even think of applying or I might just give you a little more than a burn on the shoulder. How heroic of Katsuki. Truly the embodiment of a hero. Izuku wishes he could say he called him a BSTRD, or that maybe he shoved him away, reminding the other boy that his words were far from heroic, and that no matter how strong he is, he doesn't have the right to treat Izuku like the sheet on someone's shoes. But Izuku stands there, fists clenched and trembling, his mouth open as he tries to say something, anything really. How sad, I thought he at least had some fight in him. Funny you mention it, lackey 2 hashtag, Izuku thought so too. He finally gets it, he'll never be a hero. No, you're wrong about that one, lackey 1 hashtag. Izuku is too stubborn and determined to give up because Katsuki and his lackeys threaten him bit. That dream means too much to him for someone like them to snatch it away. Better to find out now than later, I guess. Would they just finish walking out and quit being so mean? You know, Deku, if you really want to be a hero that badly, there might actually be another way. Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Izuku flinches at the words. He turns to face them, but the glare and explosions Katsuki lets out have him facing the window again. He can hear his lackeys laugh as they leave. They leave Izuku feeling another level devastated. I mean, he was just suicide baited by one of the people who he admires most, and the one he actually kind of loves. So Katsuki really hates him so much he had to go and tell him to kill himself. He knew the boy didn't like him. He knew the Katsuki Izuku loved was long gone, but he doesn't even care if Izuku dies? Why did Izuku have to go and fall in love with Katsuki of all people? Why'd he fall in love with someone that hates him so much that he'd tell Izuku to go kill himself? Couldn't Izuku's heart go choose someone else to admire? Someone else to love? Why'd it have to be Katsuki? Why can't Izuku's heart understand that the nice blonde boy that promised they'd become heroes together and be together forever, the boy that actually liked him, died years ago? How hard is it for his heart to understand that that version of Katsuki was gone the moment he heard Izuku was quirkless? Couldn't Izuku's heart realize that loving Katsuki only brings him heartbreak? Because Izuku's brain sure as hell understands, Oh, his brain understands that all too well. The more Izuku thinks about it, the worse he feels. So, he just won't think about it. He has a journal to find anyways. Izuku wipes tears he didn't notice had fallen, grabs his bag and leaves the classroom. If only he could leave the horrible feeling of disillusionment there as well. And what if I actually jumped? What would that idiot do then? Despite telling himself he wouldn't think about it, Izuku continues to mutter to himself bitterly as he searches for his journal. His despair, which was still there, was now accompanied by petty anger that refused to let him stop thinking about Katsuki and how stupid he was for saying something like that to Izuku. I mean, wasn't bullying me enough for him? Did that idiot really have to go and dashed us? Oh, my dreams have become fish food. Remember that journal Izuku's looking for? He found it where he guessed he would, but he found it being eaten by fish. He must truly be the universe's favorite person, that is, to screw over. Get away from that, eat each other if you're so hungry. What a nice thing to say to the fish, Izuku. He pulls the soggy journal out of the pond and continues his walk home. It'll dry and then he can continue writing in it. Just like how the pain that the blonde's words bring will wear off, and how he'll then continue to work towards his dream that nobody seems to believe he can achieve. After all, he made a decision when he was a kid that he'd become a hero no matter what, even if his parents were gone, even if his aunt hates him, even if no one ever told him the words of encouragement he needed to hear, even if he has to do it alone and unloved, and even if it seems like the universe itself hates him. And he won't let Katsuki and his lackeys be the thing that holds him back. Because Izuku is a lot of things, but he isn't a quitter. Izuku pauses, letting out a sigh that seemed to take all his previous feelings of hopeless devastation with it. He won't give up, he never will. Because that's just not what a hero would do. Because that's not what All Might would do. He smiles, looking up with a new fire in his eyes he didn't have before. Yeah, that's right. He's gonna become a hero. One that'll be just as great as All Might. He'll prove everyone wrong and never let them wipe the smile off his face. Haha, Izuku's moment of determination, in which he copies All Might's laugh disturbingly accurately, is interrupted by the weird sound of something slimy. Turning around, Izuku's moment of emotional triumph is cut short, just like his air supply. Because apparently if suicide wasn't going to get rid of Izuku for the universe, some giant green sludge villain will. Izuku's eyes widen in fear as sludge envelopes him, and when he opens his mouth to scream for help, his cries are muffled by sludge forcefully shoving itself down Izuku's throat. Don't worry, I'm just taking over your body. It's best for the both of us if you don't struggle. It'll only hurt for a minute, you'll feel better soon. This guy tastes like the stench of dog's hit if it was tasteable. But that's the least of Izuku's worries, because he can't breathe. Izuku claws at the sludge in a desperate attempt to break free, but his hands go right through it. Grab all you want. My body's made of fluid. I've been needing a body to take over. With him in the city, I need to get out before he tracks me down. To find someone alone and defenseless is a blessing. You're a real hero, kid. Izuku could feel his body weaken, he can see his vision going black. His struggle against the villain's grip was beginning to die down. At least he managed to be somebody's hero. Even if it's the person killing him. So this is it? The moment Izuku gets his sheet, even just a little bit together, some villain comes and suffocates him to death? No, this can't be it. This can't be how he dies. He still hasn't become a hero. If he doesn't get to become a hero, then pushing through this horrible life for 14 years would have been for nothing. If he dies now, then all the pain, all the struggle he went through, wouldn't have been worth it, it'd just be pointless pain. Izuku's blurry blackening gaze lands on his journal. Ironically enough, it had landed on the page in which he'd designed his own hero costume. Please, somebody help me. Those were his last thoughts before his vision went black. Yet from the corner of his eye, Izuku sees a large figure. All Might? Izuku passes out before he has time to dwell on it. Izuku at times has wondered what death would be like. Who hasn't? Izuku always thought it'd be peaceful, a quiet place where you lay forever, a place where you can't feel a thing. A place where you can't think either. A place where you are nothing, but not in a depressing way, but in a way in which you are non-existent. You couldn't get bored because you'd be dead, unaware of how much time passes or what the hell time even is. It'd be nice because you couldn't feel any of the bad feelings you'd feel when you were alive. How could you? You wouldn't be able to even know what feelings were, you simply wouldn't remember them, or anything else for that matter. Technically, the same goes for good feelings, but it's not like you'd be aware they existed. You actually wouldn't be aware of anything. That's how Izuku always thought death would be. That's so why does it feel like someone's slapping him in the face? No, literally, it feels like someone's slapping him. Can he at least rest eternally in peace? Wait, no, this feels real. Izuku slowly blinks himself awake, and it seems the source of the slapping on his cheek noticed his revival because the slapping stops, and a booming voice Izuku recognizes all too well rings through his ears. Thought we lost you there. Izuku slowly sits up, blinking up at All Might. All Might? The fact his idol, aka the #1 hero, and the symbol of peace, is staring down at him almost surprises him more than the fact the universe spared his life. Izuku lets out a shriek of surprise as he backs away from the hero, still on the ground with wide eyes. Seems like you're moving around all right. All Might. Sorry about that back there. Is right there. I didn't mean to get you caught up while I was serving justice, in front of him. Usually I pay more attention to keep my bystanders safe. Not in a dream. But it turns out this city's sewer system is pretty difficult to navigate. But in real life. Anyway, you were a real help. Thank you, I've captured the evildoer. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is real. He's real, the real All Might. And Izuku got to meet him. What is he waiting for? Izuku needs to ask for an autograph. Wait, All Might, please, can you dash? When Izuku grabs his now drier journal to ask for a signature, he finds it's already been signed. He already signed it. Izuku quickly gives All Might a low bow. Thank you so much, All Might. I'll guard this with my life. I won't let the universe ruin this signature. It'll be a family heirloom. I owe you my life after all. All Might gives Izuku a thumbs up while he continues his little rant. Welp, I've got to get this guy to the police so they can take care of him. Stay out of trouble and see you later. This snaps Izuku out of whatever fanboy trance he was in. You're leaving already? Izuku's voice comes out in a whine, but he has no time to die of embarrassment. He still needs to ask his question. Pro heroes are constantly fighting time as well as enemies. But he can't go yet. Izuku still has to ask. He needs to know if he can. Thank you for your continued support. With that, the hero puts the villain in a spare soda bottle, then he's soaring through the sky. And so is Izuku. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Looks like All Might took notice of how Izuku hanging onto his leg like his life depends on it. Because it kind of does. If Izuku's honest with you, his body moved on his own. The boy has no actual idea why he pulled such a stupid move. I love my fans, but this is too much. Let go. All Might begins to try and push Izuku off, to which Izuku holds onto him tighter. No, I'll fall. Oh, that's a good point. All Might quits trying to push the boy off. Since Izuku's already here, he might as well ask his question. There's just not a question I need to ask you. Please. Izuku's not sure the hero hurt him because he turns his head to the side and lets out a few coughs. And also because he can barely hear himself with the speed that All Might's flying with. The wind is too loud. Did you not hear me? I said, D. Before he could repeat himself, the pro hero makes a sudden turn to the rooftop of a nearby building, making the boy shriek in surprise at the sudden change in direction. The pro hero lands on the rooftop of some random building with a thud and Izuku lets go. His heart was racing. Why the hell did he do that? Grabbing onto the hero's leg as if falling wouldn't have killed him. Doesn't matter, his sad life might have just flashed before his eyes, but he has a question to ask. All Might dash, Izuku started, looking up from where he was on the ground, but All Might interrupted him as he made his way to the edge of the building. Sorry kid, but I have to go. For once Izuku didn't want to hear that booming voice, he wanted it to shut up and let him talk. Wait, please, I have to know. Izuku pauses for a moment, his hand moving on its own as his hand reached for All Might, as he reached for All Might. He could hear it, his aunt's drunken insults, Katsuki's cruel remarks meant to put him down, He could hear the voices of those who told him it wasn't possible and of those that made him feel like a waste of space that could never become a hero. But he ignored them. It wasn't the time to dwell on those voices, because there was only one voice he needed to hear, one voice he needed to tell him he could do it, one voice and he'd truly know it was possible. One voice and he'd be able to keep going because honestly, despite making that declaration of not giving up to himself earlier, he's not sure it'll last. He needed to know, if All Might believed, that even he. Is it possible to become a hero, even if I don't have a quirk? All Might paused, and Izuku didn't waste any time and continued. I'm a normal boy, a quirkless one, and I'm as useless as they get, but I need to know if I could ever become someone like you? Can I too save others with a smile and bring hope to their lives? His voice cracked. Tears threatened to spill from Izuku's eyes as his gaze that was once glued to the floor met the blue eyes of All Might that finally decided to turn and meet his emerald-like eyes. Please, believe in me. Don't be like the others. I don't want to ever give up, but if not even you can find it in your heart to believe in me, I don't think I can keep going. Izuku silently begged. The silence was loud. Izuku wasn't sure if that was a good or bad sign, or if All Might would respond at all. So Izuku looked back down at the ground, taking a deep breath before adding on. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to become a hero. I always wanted to save others with a fearless smile on my face, just like you. But then I learned I was quirkless. Nobody believed I could do it. My classmates are always picking on me because of that, because of my seemingly unachievable dream and the parts of me that make it so unachievable. Especially the one I admire most and, honestly, the one I love, doesn't think I can do it. But that just makes me want to prove them wrong. I want to show them that even I can do it, that I can save others and make their worries and fears go away when they see the fearless smile on my face. And be the hero I look up to most. You. Slowly through the speech, Izuku's voice gets louder and more confident, and when he finally finishes, he turns his head up to look up and meet All Might's gaze. But as his eyes land on where All Might was supposed to be, a bunch of steam, that Izuku has no idea when and where it came from, seems to fade away, revealing a really skinny man. And for a moment Izuku is silent, taking a few giant steps back with his mouth half open. Then he screams because what the hell? What happened to All Might? Was the man taken and replaced with this bony dude with the exact same clothes as All Might in a pathetic attempt to fool Izuku? Just how stupid do people think quirkless people are? This couldn't fool anyone. But that's besides the point. All Might is gone. What did you do to All Might? Where is he? Did you take him? Is this a villain's doing, and you're their replacement? You're not a very good doppelganger. Izuku's panic and stupid accusations are interrupted by the bony man. What? No, I can assure you I am all me. The man's words are cut short when he lets out a cough, leaving his mouth dripping with blood. Are you okay? No, this must be a distraction. Right? Right? Why, you can't actually be All Might. At this point it sounds more like Izuku is trying to prove himself wrong. Trying to make himself believe he didn't just see All Might deflate into some bony man. The man lets out a tired sigh, and Izuku notes to himself that even if he's only seen this guy for a few moments, he's nothing like All Might, or at least the All Might the public is used to. Listen kid, I really am All Might. Just how do I explain this that you know those guys at the pool that try to SCK it in? And start flexing so they look buff in front of girls. Yeah, he knows what he's referring to. Well, that's me, and right now, if we use that example, I'm the guy before he tries looking buff. All Might takes a seat on the floor, resting his back on the rails and his elbows on his knees. It reminded Izuku of how a gangster would sit down, only instead of some cool edgy guy, it's a guy that reminds Izuku of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Yeah, Izuku is for sure referring to the man by that name from now on. But just in his head. But that's besides the point. Shaggy over here is claiming he's All Might, and that All Might's buff, tall, strong, cool form is actually just a front to hide this smaller, skinnier form. Izuku opens his mouth to ask a question, but Shaggy lifts his shirt, replacing whatever words Izuku was about to utter into a shocked, disturbed gasp. That is one nasty injury. Shaggy had a large dent that took up half of the right side of his stomach. There were stitches closing the wound, but his skin was purple and red around the injured area. It looked kind of like someone punched a hole into Shaggy's stomach and whoever was treating him pulled the remaining skin together before stitching it right up to the center of the injury. Now that Izuku really thinks about it, that's probably exactly what happened. Yeah, pretty gross, isn't it? I got this in a fight 5 years back. My respiratory system is basically destroyed and I lost most of my stomach. All the surgeries I got wore me out. Right now, my limit is 3 hours. That's all the time I got to do hero work per day. So this is the real All Might? And 3 hours is all the time he's got? Then the rest of the day Shaggy is what becomes of All Might? And this fight was when? 5 years ago, he says? So the fight must have been. The fight with Toxic Chainsaw. Was that the fight where you got that? Izuku asks, obviously still jumpy and nervous, but more calm than the kid that was screaming accusations to the hero a few moments ago. You must be quite the fanboy. Most of this world has never heard of that fight. But that's because I did everything I could to keep it under wraps. What's your name, kid? Despite the situation, Izuku still manages to feel a tinge of excitement that the All Might wanted to know his name. Bony framed or not, Shaggy is technically the same person as All Might. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku accidentally says his name a little loudly, so when he says his last name, he quiets his voice down with an embarrassed flush to his cheeks. Well, Midoriya, I'm supposed to be the fearless guy that's always smiling, the symbol of peace that people everywhere have to believe is never afraid. But if I'm honest with you, behind that smile is fear. Fear of losing, failing, fear that comes with the job of being a hero. He's lying. That flashy brave smile on my face is just a front I put on when the pressure is high. He's lying, right? But my smile hiding fear is not the point. Then where is this going? This job isn't easy. Pro heroes are always putting their lives on the line. And Midoriya, I'm sorry but some villains just can't be beaten without powers. Izuku suddenly wishes this was about All Might's smile being fake, about how All Might got his bad injury. He wishes this conversation wasn't going in the direction Izuku knew it was going in. Maybe you can try being a policeman? No, he hasn't said it yet. Maybe I'm just not taking it the wrong way. Or if that's not your thing, you can work to stop fires. Because All Might is always saying it, anyone can be a hero. Even me. I'm part of that everyone. Right? Volunteering is also an option. I don't want to volunteer. That's not what I want to be. This is not what I want to hear. Please, Shaggy, just tell me I can do it. 5 words. That's all I need from you. The point is, there are plenty of ways to help other people that don't bring the risks that heroes have to watch out for. Not you too. No, you have to believe in me. No one else will. And I don't think I can keep chasing this dream if I know that not even you believe I can do it. I'm saying this because, honestly, I think that. And if I can't chase this dream, then I'm not sure I'll be able to have the motivation to do anything. This dream is the thing that keeps me jumping through all the hurdles this hateful universe throws at me, the idea of making a difference and saving others with a smile on my face, that keeps me going. That dream, that goal, is what makes me wake up and start my day with determination no matter how little of a reason there is to have it. And if I can't find myself chasing that seemingly impossible dream of becoming a hero, then that I don't think I'll be able to wake up and start another day. I don't think I'll be able to ignore the struggle of living this shitty life. I don't think I can keep enduring the bruises and burns that keep appearing on my body no matter how much I heal them. I don't think I can keep putting up with my aunt, with the bullies, with Kakin. With this life. That you can't become a hero. He got 5 words all right, just not the ones he needed. Instead he got the 5 words that finally seemed to have broke him. So not even All Might, not even he thinks I can do it. Izuku's eyes dull, but honestly at that moment he's pretty sure his heart did too. It's not bad to have dreams, Midoriya, but make sure they're attainable. Izuku's gaze follows Shaggy to the roof access door. Don't tell anyone about this, don't tell your friends or post about it. He won't have to worry about that. Izuku doesn't have any friends to tell, and he's not sure anyone would even look at his posts. And try to be more realistic. Those were Shaggy's last words before the door closed. Izuku stood there, silently looking at the ground. And he can't help but let out a laugh, running a hand through his messy green curly hair. Only his laugh wasn't filled with joy, nervousness, or amusement as Izuku's usual laughter usually was. It was a dull laugh, filled with, Izuku couldn't tell you, he too had no idea what the hell he was feeling. All he knows is that his dream will never come true. And that all the pain he's gone through was for nothing. Pointless pain. Izuku's laughter dies down, he sighs, Izuku's lips pressed into a lazy frown, as he turns his dull gaze to the sky. Usually when Izuku thought of how this conversation would go, when the possibility of what had just became his reality crossed his mind, he imagined he'd cry his shattered heart out. He never imagined he'd laugh. He'd never imagined he'd feel whatever he was feeling. Because it wasn't that sadness he expected he'd feel. It was a different sadness. Not even sadness, maybe hopelessness? That was part of it. He thinks? He feels surprisingly numb, yet unsurprisingly horrible, all at the same time. He actually feels kind of lonely. Well, he's always lonely, just right now, knowing that even All Might didn't believe in him, that truly nobody believed in him, that he felt truly alone. Which is funny because technically All Might wasn't actually there with Izuku. He always assumed the man that seemed to believe in everyone, that seemed to care for everyone, would believe and care for him too. But clearly it was all in Izuku's imagination. Thank God Izuku felt oddly numb at the moment, because if he didn't he'd likely be bawling his eyes out. Izuku turned his gaze to the side. Upon seeing rails that shielded people from the edge of the building, Izuku was reminded of where he was. He should probably go home. He has homework to do and an apartment to clean, even if he's only cleaning up a little. But why do it? Up until this point everything he did was so that he could get closer and closer to achieving his dream. He studied because if he was gonna be a quirkless hero he'd at least need to be smart. He even built a computer so he could start taking college classes. He treated every DMN wound he'd been given because a wounded hero couldn't get the job done as well as a healed one. He ignored the bullies and his drunken aunt's harsh words so that his determination and willingness to chase his dream would never cease to exist. So why do homework when he has no actual reason to? What do good grades and smarts matter now? It's not like he can use them to get into a hero course. Why clean the apartment? Usually he'd clean it so his aunt wouldn't get in a bad mood and hurt him, but the only reason Izuku keeps himself safe is so that he can be in the best shape possible and use his body to save others. Everything he did was to help him achieve his dream. Because that dream was the only thing that could give Izuku the motivation to keep going. So if no matter how hard he tries, if no matter what he does, if no matter what he endures, he still can't be a hero, why does anything matter? Izuku won't settle for another job, for another future. He wants to be a hero, that's how he wants to live, even if he's quirkless. And All Might was the thing keeping his dream alive. Hell, he's what started this dream. If Izuku can't be a hero then, he doesn't think he wants to be anything at all. If Izuku's future won't go the way Izuku wants it to go, then Izuku doesn't think he wants one. But how do you avoid the future? Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Well, that's one way to do it. In fact, that's exactly the way Izuku thinks he'll do it. I mean, he's already on a rooftop, and for some reason he doesn't seem to feel appalled by the idea. That's what Izuku will do. If the universe wants Izuku out of the world so bad, he'll gladly leave it himself. After all, the one thing keeping him here, the one dream keeping Izuku in this world, was gone. I should have known a dream like that is far too unachievable for someone as useless, hopeless, lonely, stupid, weak, and quirkless as me. Izuku lets out another small chuckle. He's always wondering how Katsuki manages to say such a mouthful of insults towards Izuku, and he just did it himself. Izuku turned and took his time as he walked to the edge. There's no rush, nobody's gonna stop him from falling to his death. There's nobody that cares enough about him to go search for him, nobody that would care enough to find him. It's a little funny how out of all the times he's been told he can never be a hero, which is a lot, this is the only time it's driven him to suicide. It's the only time he's heard those words and truly believed them. Izuku finds himself laughing again for the millionth time. Who knew getting his dreams shattered would make everything so bitterly funny? This whole thing took place on a rooftop, the same day Kaken told me to jump off one. How ironic. It seems the universe set up the perfect date for me and some guy named Suicide. So perfect in fact, that we've decided to get married and stay together forever. We even adopted a cute little girl. Her name is Death. Izuku laughs at his own joke. If he won't laugh at his hilarious jokes, who will? Here's a hint. The answer is the same amount of people that believe he has what it takes to be a hero. If you guessed nobody, you got it right. Your prize? The pleasure of watching Izuku free himself from life. Izuku leaned on the railing, looking up at the sky. Before he dies, he should at least enjoy the view. The sun was beginning to set, and honestly, the view was amazing. The sky was pink and orange, the sun was slowly setting, but it wasn't quite there yet. Izuku guesses it should be setting in an hour or two. Anyways, there were just enough clouds for the sky not to be overcrowded, and just enough so it didn't look too empty. How can something so pretty exist in a world full of ugly things? How is he the only one who seems to be enjoying this view? The few pedestrians below don't seem to give a damn. For a few minutes, Izuku let these pointless thoughts pass through his mind. He chose not to spend the last few moments of his life dwelling on the reason he's ending it. I wonder if color looks different in other people's eyes. Of course, colorblindness exists, but even those who haven't been diagnosed, do they actually see colors differently too? If you think about it, there's no way to be sure someone else is seeing the same thing as you. Izuku's thoughts are interrupted when he feels something vibrate from the book bag on his back. Some Tyler the Creator song can be faintly heard. Oh, it's his time check alarm. As previously mentioned, today's cleanup day, and on cleanup day he tends to lose track of time. So Izuku set up hourly alarms to remind him of the time. This is his first one of the day, so it's probably around 5 p.m. He should probably get to the part where he kills himself. Izuku steps away from the rails and throws his backpack to the side. He begins to climb the rails but pauses and gets back down. He heard that when some people kill themselves, they take off their shoes before the act. Because it's polite towards the afterlife. Maybe if Izuku does that, the afterlife will accept him with open arms, something this world has never done for. Though if he's honest with you, he doesn't think there is an afterlife. He still thinks once he dies he'll just cease to exist. But just in case, he bends down and unties his shoes' laces. Slipping off his red worn-off sneakers, he carefully climbs over the edge. It seems Izuku is leaving this world the same way his mother did. You know what they say, mother like son. Looking down, Izuku could tell he was up high. The building was probably 0.7 or 8 stories tall. That's his guess. Whatever. It's about time Izuku gets this stupid life over with. 14 years of putting up with the universe's bullcrap, all for nothing. Because in the end he couldn't become a hero. Izuku stands on the edge, holding onto the railing, only this time he's behind it. Staring at the ground below him. Then it hits him. He knows what he's feeling. Existential numbness. Izuku's a little glad that's the feeling he'll die with. Because it numbs the pain he'd likely be feeling if he tried this later on. Once his mind snaps out of this numbed state that Izuku guesses came from the realization of the truth. The truth of his dream being unachievable for him, the truth that the name Deku suits him perfectly, the truth that everybody that told him he couldn't do it was right. And the realization of the truth on how living this life was all worth nothing, that he was worth nothing and he'd never be strong enough to change that. The truth he tried to ignore. On the bright side, he doesn't have to live under the illusion he can do it, because that hurt like hell. In fact, he doesn't have to live at all. Warning, suicide scene trigger warning warning. Izuku takes a step forward, knowing his foot wouldn't have anything to land on. And then he's falling, and falling, and falling. He smiles, closing his eyes. He could feel that weird feeling you get when you're on a roller coaster as he falls. He could feel the tinge of fear that came with the knowledge that he was going to die. But he still smiled, because he was finally going to be free. A sharp pain flashes through Izuku's head, but leaves as quick as it came. Whatever, Izuku chooses to forget about it and lets his mind wander for the last few moments of his life. I wonder if I'll end up in a non-existent state of nothingness just like I've always guessed I would. Or would there be an afterlife where I get to rest in peace? Maybe I'll get reborn. I hope it's with a quirk. Sadly, Izuku won't be finding out yet, because just as he's about to hit the ground, something wraps around his torso and hauls him back up. Warning, end of suicidal scene warning. Izuku's eyes widen briefly in confusion as something lassoed him back up to the rooftop. Upon looking up, his gaze lands on a man, dressed in all black. A gray capture weapon kept him in place and from making a run for the edge of the rooftop. Izuku guesses that's also the thing that caught him mid-fall. He looks kind of homeless, and like he hasn't slept in years. Izuku didn't know who it was until his eyes landed on the yellow goggles hanging loosely around his neck. It was Eraserhead, the Erasure hero that had the ability to erase someone's quirk just by looking at them. But when he blinks, the quirk deactivates. This happens to be Izuku's favorite underground hero. Izuku notices the way the hero's hair was floating. He's likely using his quirk on the boy. The underground hero opened his mouth to speak, but Izuku beat him to it, looking away from the hero and at the ground, his eyes still dull. "I'm quirkless, you don't need to waste time using your quirk on me." Izuku pauses, a small bitter smile on his lips that doesn't seem to reach his eyes. "In fact, don't waste your time on me either. The pro heroes are constantly fighting time as well as enemies. All Might said so himself. You're not wasting my time. A hero's job is to save lives, even if it's not a villain putting someone's life in danger." Yeah, but this someone is Izuku Midoriya, and even if by some miracle Izuku actually mattered, the boy didn't exactly want to be saved. "Sorry, but I don't want to be saved. So kindly F off." Normally Izuku would be brimming with excitement. In fact, he'd probably be playing a one-sided game of 20 questions. But this isn't exactly a normal situation, is it? And Izuku doesn't exactly feel like his normal self. In fact, he feels nothing but an empty feeling in his heart where determination once was. Why is that? Because Izuku's delusional but just got a reality check that he hoped he'd never get. Because the truth hurts. Eraserhead. Izuku says with a sigh. Tired of sitting up, and if Izuku's being honest, of everything in general, Izuku lets himself fall onto his back. His arms and legs spread out, kind of like a starfish. Despite staring up at the still illuminated sky, there's no light in his eyes. "You know who I am." It was not a question, but rather a statement. Yeah. The goggles were what gave it away. "I'm a bit of a fan. A big one actually." But at the moment Izuku wasn't in the best mental state to have the energy to act excited. The hero stayed silent for a moment. He probably wasn't used to being recognized. "And what's the truth that drove you to the edge?" "The truth that he can't become a hero and therefore has no reason to continue living this horrible life." Duh. Izuku doesn't respond. He's never exactly been asked about his feelings. "You don't have to answer, but if you want to talk about it, I don't mind listening." Izuku looks at the hero, with no emotion on his face. "The truth I've been denying for the past 9 years of my life. The truth that kept me going in this shitty world." Izuku's not sure why he's telling someone he just met all this, but the hero offered it, so why not? "I can't believe I was stupid enough to think that even I, a quirkless loser, could be dashed." Izuku pauses, not sure if he should continue, but after a moment he does anyway. Though he does remind himself to censor a few things, like not mentioning anything about his aunt, for the sake of avoiding the authorities from taking Izuku away from her. Izuku may want nothing more than to run away and leave the sick woman behind, but Izuku didn't have anyone else, or anywhere to go, and an adoption center is somewhere Izuku would rather die than end up in. Though at the moment Izuku would choose death over anything. A hero. "It's not like nobody told me it wasn't possible. It's actually all they would say. But I ignored them, because that dream was the only thing keeping me here. It's what had me waking up in the morning despite me wanting nothing more than to rot in bed, taking care of that DMN apartment when I can barely take care of myself, ignoring all the assholes of the world that felt like they were screaming in my ear. It kept me alive and motivated despite having no reason feel that way. But now that not even he believes in me. It seems Izuku's blissful numbness has faded because he feels his eyes water and lets out a choked sob. One full of pain, anger, sadness, and a hate for himself and his sad life. Every emotion Izuku has held in came crashing out of him through tears. That I can't keep going. I can't live like this anymore. I can't live anymore. It hurts. Too much. I'm tired. I'm so effing tired. Of their shitty insults. I'm tired of being a worthless Deku. Between his words, Izuku finds himself sobbing like a little kid. wiping his tears as he tries to speak. Pathetic. Izuku is so dim and pathetic. He's tired of being Izuku Midoriya. He can't take it anymore. He can't be positive anymore. What the hell is there in his life to be positive about? It's not fair. Why does the universe hate me so much? Why couldn't I just be born better? Why is it that no matter what I do, in the end I'm always stupid, useless, spineless Deku? Why can't anyone believe in me? Why am I always alone? Why am I so weak? If I was stronger, I'm sure that at least my aunt, that at least she. Why can't I? It hits Izuku that he's probably wasted enough of the pro hero's time. But Izuku can't seem to quit his sobbing. Sorry. Through his sobs he manages to laugh. That numb feeling I had seems to have worn off. Izuku keeps stuttering thanks to the small hiccups he lets out. He looks up at the hero through tears. He expected the hero to have been gone by now, but is surprised to see he's still there, a weirdly soft look in his eyes in contrast to homeless-looking man's aloof face. Izuku's crying dies down. Why are you still here? Why hasn't he left like everyone else? I said I'd listen, didn't I? And whoever put that idea of you being weak in your head is an idiot. The hero says, his voice is deep and rather gruff, yet for some reason Izuku found himself being calmed by it. Maybe it's because it belonged by the only person Izuku has met that seemed to care even just a little about Izuku since the time his mother died. You call yourself weak, but look how far you've made it. You said it yourself, for 9 years you've pushed through whatever you're going through. I don't think a weak person could put up with all the pain you've gone through for so long. Izuku opens his mouth to speak. To tell him he's wrong, that even if Izuku has managed to handle it for a few years, that doesn't change the fact he's worthless and can't fight back for shit, that it doesn't change how useless he is, or how utterly physically weak he is. But the hero puts a hand up as if to tell him to wait. The universe hates you, right? It seems so. It seems to want him dead too. And wouldn't you say the universe is one tough opponent? Izuku pauses, wiping the remaining tears out of his red puffy eyes and wiping the snot off his nose, before nodding yes. Yet you've managed to fight it for 9 entire years. Now Izuku's confused. Fighting the universe? The hero gives him a small smile, kneeling down to his level. Kid, every time you wake up in the morning despite not wanting to, every time you ignore the people who try to put you down, every time you take care of that apartment you mentioned, you're fighting back. You're pushing through the hardships this universe throws at you. And you've been fighting back for 9 whole years. In my opinion, you're pretty DMN strong. And for the record, you're not worthless, nobody is. Izuku's eyes widen as he stares at the hero as if he's a ghost. Somebody thinks Izuku is that strong, that he's not worthless? The hero continues. You said that you can't become a hero, why is that? I'm quirkless. Izuku says quietly as he looks away from him. So? What does he mean, so? Izuku is quirkless. To be a hero you need a quirk? Shaggy said so himself? So what if you're quirkless? Who says you need a quirk to become a hero? All Might himself actually. Izuku looks at the hero like he's stupid, sniffling from his previous crying fit. Literally everyone. Not everyone. I certainly don't think it's true. Izuku wants to argue that just because he thinks it's not true doesn't mean it really isn't, but once again the pro-hero speaks before Izuku can. I actually fight quirkless quite often. My quirk cancels out another's quirk, but disabling one's quirk won't completely immobilize them. And then there's heteromorphs, they're immune to my quirk. So I rely mostly on my ability to fight hand-to-hand combat. And my capture weapon also plays an important role when facing villains. It helps me counter their attacks, and my quirk isn't what controls the capture weapon, my body and the skills I've trained it to master do. And I clearly didn't need a quirk to do that. Aizawa pauses, giving him a thumbs up as he speaks, the setting sun shining on him in a way that reminded Izuku of those scenes in movies where something dramatic and important to the plot is happening and the sun shines on them at the perfect moment, making them look all majestic and chic. But Izuku is too moved by the hero to dwell on that pointless thought. That's why, with proper training and support equipment. Is he gonna say it? Does he truly think that? I think you can become a hero without a quirk. Even Izuku can become a hero? Izuku sits up staring at the hero wide and teary-eyed. Only this time the tears weren't fueled by negative emotions, but by a happiness Izuku isn't familiar with, a happiness Izuku doesn't think he ever wants to let go. He believes in me. He truly thinks I can do it. Are you okay? Izuku, who is still stunned in silence, doesn't respond to the hero and continues to silently cry while he stares at the hero. He's still processing the fact someone actually thinks he can do it. Kidek? Izuku practically tackles the hero into a hug, making them both fall back onto the ground. Izuku lets out a mix of a laugh and a sob, only unlike before there's no bitterness in it. Eraserhead's arms hang awkwardly to the side as the boy clings onto him, his body is stiff. For the hero is unsure if the boy is happy or sad. He's not good at reading emotions. Are you okay? Better than okay, I'm feeling amazing. Izuku shouts, pulling away from the hero, a wide grin on his face as he runs around the rooftop like an idiot, crying and laughing at the same time. Someone believes in me. Someone thinks I can do it. I can be a hero. Izuku feels his heart swell with a determination and pure joy the boy hasn't felt in a long time. He feels as if he could win a fight with the world. He feels like he could even take on Katsuki. The Erasure hero is right. Izuku is not weak, he's not useless, and he can be a hero. He's Izuku Midoriya, the quirkless boy that has fought the universe and all the shitty FING things it throws at him, and has found a way to pull through every DM in time. Izuku wipes the tears from his eyes as he stands in the middle of the rooftop, laughing as he continues to shout at nothing. All Might. F. Kaken. F. Aunt Chihiro. The universe. I can do it. I will be a hero. Izuku throws his hands in the air, making sure to stick out his middle fingers. Hear that, universe? I'm not gonna succumb to your shitty ways. Because I'm not the weak Deku you've been trying to make me think I am. What snaps Izuku out of his adrenaline-driven outburst of joy is the sound of Eraserhead's muffled laughter. Only it doesn't sound mocking like the ones Izuku's classmates send him. It sounds oddly warm to Izuku. Izuku turns back to the hero, his laughter dying down for a moment as he stares at the hero. But instead of awkwardly shutting up, Izuku smiles, laughing again, but this time softer, and less like a crazy person. I look pretty crazy, don't I? Not every day I get to see someone scream, All Might. The hero's light laughter turns into a grin. He walks up to Izuku, putting a hand on his head and ruffling his hair. What's your name, kid? Izuku Midoriya. Well, Midoriya, I'm glad I could help give you whatever emotional breakthrough I just gave you. Izuku gives the hero a smile so bright that could blind even the sun. And I'm glad I gave you a good laugh. Seriously, I'm fine, you don't have to walk me home. Izuku says awkwardly. As fond as Izuku had become of the hero in such a short time, Eraserhead insisted he walked him home, and the boy was rather nervous about it. What if he saw his aunt? What if he gets suspicious and wants to see the not-so-perfect condition of their apartment because Izuku can only do so much when it comes to cleaning? He'll know Izuku's living conditions are not at the best. To Izuku, he was fine. I mean, sure, it's tiring, but Izuku has and can deal with it just fine. But he wasn't stupid. He knew the authorities wouldn't see it that way and would take him away. And as much as his aunt hates him, she's all Izuku's got. But Izuku's probably overthinking it. He doesn't have to let the hero in. If anything, the hero can just drop him off at the door, and there's nothing wrong with that. A kid walking home alone at this time is just asking for trouble. And I have to talk to at least one of your legal guardians anyways. Upon hearing his words, Izuku comes to a sudden halt, whipping his head back to the hero who also stopped walking from behind him. It seems the universe has read Izuku's mind and decided to make this a whole bunch more complicated. No, I mean my aunt's, working? Real smooth Izuku, real DMN smooth. The hero doesn't look like he bought Izuku's awfully sad attempt at lying and continues walking without Izuku. I'll go just in case your aunt arrives home early. Oh, she probably won't, so you'd be wasting your time. You really should get back to keeping people safe. Izuku continues to try to get the hero to give up on talking to his aunt, but the hero simply ignores him. Izuku quickly hurries to trail behind the hero. I'm keeping you safe. The hero says with a flat tone and a blank tired expression Izuku has come to notice the stoic man always has. From what? I'm okay now. Izuku says, now back at the hero's side looking up at him feeling frustrated. The hero won't back off on the matter. Even if you are, after what you tried to do to yourself today, I need to talk to your aunt about getting you some help, so that you don't end up back on the other side of the rails. Izuku needed someone to believe in him, not help. He can handle himself from now on. He has been for years. I can assure you I don't need help, and I'm not gonna end up trying to kill myself. I'll talk to her just in case. The hero stops walking, slipping his hands in his pockets, looking at Izuku expectantly. What? Izuku asks, looking a little confused at the hero's halt. Maybe he changed his mind? I don't know where you live, kid. I need directions. Oh yeah, the hero doesn't know where Izuku lives. For once the universe is giving him the upper hand. And what if I just don't tell you? Izuku asks hesitantly. He knows from the few interviews the hero has been in he is not one to be tested, but Izuku can't just go to a random empty apartment because the hero said he'd wait and eventually the actual resident will return. So Izuku has no choice but to just not tell him where he lives. Then I could always take you to the nearest police station. How does getting sent to a psychiatric unit sound? It sounds horrible. Izuku would not only be screwed over by the authorities but be sent to a psych ward after. Well then I guess we're heading to my place. God, Izuku is so screwed. But when isn't he screwed? Well, this is it. Izuku mutters as they stop in front of a steel door with the apartment number 404 on it. Izuku could only hope he didn't look as nervous as he was as he fumbled with his keys. He wishes he wouldn't have to open this door and reveal his aunt, who was likely not in a presentable state, to the hero. And maybe also not to reveal to his aunt the fact he's even interacting with a hero, or that he brought him to their house. But sadly wishes don't always come true. He just had to hope his aunt wasn't totally wasted and he could find a way to lie about the mess inside his home in case the hero ends up walking in or catching a glimpse from the door. Despite having the keys now positioned at the lock, Izuku can't find himself unlocking it. He felt like he did earlier today when the teacher asked him to answer the question. Only now the thing that has his anxiety levels rising is the fact the hero is at his door and wanting to speak to his aunt. His aunt who hates heroes for some odd reason, and his aunt who isn't appalled by the idea of hurting her sister's son. Not to mention how it's likely she's drunk and not in the condition to be talking to a hero, which could make suspicion arise within Eraserhead, and who knows what he'll do. Maybe he'll ask to take a look around and he'll see the bottles of alcohol Izuku should have cleaned up by now. That'll surely make him suspicious of his aunt's less than child-friendly tendencies. And besides the bottles, the rest of his house isn't too sanitary since Izuku hasn't had it in him lately to clean the place up a bit, and Izuku feels a hand rest on his shoulder. Kid, breathe. Breathe? Izuku lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Sorry. Izuku mutters, biting the inside of his cheek as he unlocks the door, but he doesn't open it. He just can't do it. He's too nervous of everything that could go wrong. But especially of his aunt. Because no matter what, as long as the woman knows Izuku pulled off something so stupid a hero is at her door, she'll explode. She'll explode on him. Don't apologize. I get that telling your aunt in your case, something like this can be hard. The hero says, squeezing his shoulder lightly. And before I talk to your aunt, I want to ask. Izuku will graciously take any delay he can get. Do you still want to be a hero? Well, that was an unexpected but stupid question. Of course he did. More than anything. Izuku seems to perk up a bit, turning his gaze from the door to the hero. Thought so. I figure since I know how to fight quirkless and in my opinion, you clearly have what it takes, I could train you. That is if you'd like that. The hero looks down at Izuku, clearly waiting for a response. But Izuku is stunned into silence for the third time today. Can you blame him? The Eraserhead offered to help train him to become a hero. His aunt would kill him if she found out, but he really doesn't give a DMN. Yes. Yes, 1,000 times. When do we start? Tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? Time. What will I dash? Izuku puts a hand over his mouth upon realizing how intense he's being. Izuku uncovers his mouth, letting out a small embarrassed chuckle. I agree. The hero smiles, small, barely noticeable, but a smile is a smile. Especially when from the stoic hero. Glad to see you're excited, kid. How could he not be? With such an amazing offer, anyone would be thrilled. The two exchange numbers, and Izuku's anxiety is momentarily forgotten due to Izuku's excitement of getting to train with his favorite underground hero. That is until the hero brings up having to talk to his guardian, or in Izuku's case his aunt. I don't mean to spoil the mood, but I really should get to talking to your guardian. Izuku's grin fades into a nervous frown. He was so happy he forgot about that. Maybe the "my aunt isn't home" lie will work? And don't try using that lie of your aunt being at work. It's almost as if the hero could read his mind. I would never. Izuku mutters absolute bullcrap to the hero as he hesitantly opens the door, making sure to only open it a little. I'll go get my aunt, wait here. Thankfully the hero just nods and doesn't insist on coming in. The boy closes the door from behind him as he enters the apartment. He's greeted by the stench of alcohol. The darkness his home held at night in attempts to make their electricity bills a little shorter, the faint sound of the TV playing Dance Moms in the background, and the sight of the run-down living room he calls home. The wallpaper was peeling from lack of repair, there were trash bags pushed to the corner near the door full of trash and alcohol bottles he hasn't taken out yet, and their plain, undecorated hallway walls. The closest thing to decoration in this apartment were cheap alcoholic beverages covering their living room's coffee table and floor. He also didn't take off his shoes like he would at others' homes because last time he did he stepped on glass from one of his aunt's episodes, as Izuku calls them, so since then he's made sure to wear shoes around the place. Izuku sighs, grimacing at the smell he'd never get used to. Izuku takes a quick detour to his room, dropping off his backpack before slowly making his way to the worn-out couch where his aunt laid. Izuku had a few rules he made up from his 6 years of living with the woman. Don't ask for money, just steal it, and make sure it's not obvious money is missing, be quiet, and don't complain, but the most important one was to stay the F away from the woman unless she called him or there was an emergency. And here he was, about to disturb the drunkard because he tried to commit and there's a hero outside who wants to talk to her about it. As much as Izuku would love to waste time by standing awkwardly to the side while his aunt rotted on the couch, slumped on her side with her eyes glued to the TV and cheap liquor in her hand, Erasure Head was waiting outside and probably had better shit to do than wait for Izuku to get his nerves in check. So he walked a little closer, just until he was right beside the TV. Why the TV, you ask? Well, it was a little trick Izuku came up with whenever he had to disturb his aunt's pitiful peace. If he's next to the TV, she wouldn't throw anything at him because there was a chance she'd break the TV. And thanks to his mother's overspending on alcoholic shit, they wouldn't be able to afford a new one. Auntie? His mother flat out ignored his weak and pathetic attempt at gaining her attention. Auntie Chihiro, it's important, there's a hero outside and he dash. This time Izuku's attempt at gaining the woman's attention succeeded. Mission sadly accomplished. What the hell d'you mean? There's a hero outside my fucking apartment? Even through his aunt's slurred words you could tell the woman was furious. Izuku's eyes widened, he flinched hard, hiding himself slightly behind the TV. There's a dash. The boy's heart was racing and he felt like he could cry. Correction, his eyes were already tearing up. His aunt clearly had enough of his stuttering since she interrupted him. Quit your pathetic stutterin'. Tell the bitch to leave. If only he could. His aunt needed to compose herself and control the slurring of her words if she was going to talk to the hero. But how the hell can Izuku even get her to calm down in the first place? I can't, he won't go until he talks to you. And Izuku hesitates, telling his aunt to calm down, but he has to do what he has to do. Please don't yelled at or slur your words too much or he'll know you're drunk. And suspect something. Izuku keeps his gaze glued to the floor, playing with one of the yellow buttons of his uniform. Espectoire. Maybe the signs of her being an alcoholic? A not so friendly one? That you have a bit of drinking problem? And they'll think you're a danger to me. I think that's what I heard happens. Izuku trails off as his aunt stares at him. Did she hear him? I'm not a danger to you. I'm a good and good caretaker. Yeah, and this isn't fan fiction. Anyways, his aunt sounded very angry and offended. and that baffled Izuku. The women really thought, she actually thinks that she hasn't endangered him? Even when she doesn't keep this apartment sanitary enough for anyone to live in. Instead making Izuku clean it, and it's not like he can do much other than wash dishes, clear the clutter, and take out the trash. Which the boy barely has the time to do since he spends all his time studying heroes, fixing appliances around the house, making his own, writing notes, actually studying or sleeping. Even when she literally hits Izuku? Even when she pulls at his hair? Even when she yells at him, Sheet and Ant should never be telling her nephew? Even when she spends all their money on cheap alcohol and none on basic necessities? Even when Izuku could go on and on about why she's a danger to him, but for the sake of time and any reader's attention span he won't. Izuku feels a flicker of anger cross him as he freezes, putting his fidgeting to an end. His mouth open, but much like earlier, no words come out from the fearful but now angry boy. How dare she think she's been good to him? How dare she think she hasn't hurt him, after all the shit she's done? After all she's put him through? He feels a sharp pain, like the one he had felt when falling off the building, his head. Though it hurt a lot more than before, it left just as quick. Izuku decided to disregard it and focus on what's happening at the moment. So basically his aunt's bullshit. Then oh you dash. For the first time Izuku dares to yell back but is interrupted by a knock that has them snapping their heads to the hallway. Hello? Is everything alright in there? Both of the Midoriyas shut up. They had completely forgotten about the erasure hero outside. Go clean yourself up. For once Izuku's aunt listens to him before nodding her head and stumbling to her room. Izuku winces when she lets the glass of liquor fall to the floor and break, spilling alcohol on the floor. He'd have to clean that later. Izuku rushed to the door, taking a minute to take a deep breath and compose himself before slipping out, closing the door behind him. Sorry erase your head. My aunt, she just got out the shower, she'll be out in a moment. Izuku fidgeted with the buttons of his uniform much like had earlier, a habit he got when he was nervous. He could only hope he didn't look suspicious. The hero looked down at the boy, his expression unreadable. What was all that yelling about? He heard? Were they being that loud? Could he make out any of the words? Whatever, Izuku needed to shove those questions away along with the anxiety filling him and handle this. How will he handle it, you ask? What yelling? By gaslighting. The yelling that came from inside your apartment. The hero says back, raising an eyebrow and giving him a now unimpressed look at his attempt to gaslight the hero. Thankfully, thanks to Katsuki, his goons, and his aunt, especially his aunt, Izuku was quite the master at the art of gaslighting. There was no yelling? It's only me and my aunt in here and I just told you, she was in the shower. He replies casually, any trace of noticeable nervousness now masked, though still very much in him. Midoriya, I know what I heard. And it was yelling. The hero narrows his eyes at the boy, crossing his arms, not buying it. Maybe it was the TV? My aunt left it on by mistake. She was watching Dance Moms. Maybe that was what you heard. Izuku says, not backing down. He just needed to convince the hero that there was no yelling, and then hope his aunt could keep her drunk sheet together in front of the hero. Better yet, sober up. The hero stared at Izuku, as if he was trying to find any signs that he was lying. It honestly made Izuku feel like he was being stared at by a stadium of people stark naked. But somehow the usually anxiety-driven boy managed to keep it pretty decently well put together. Can I trust your word that that was really all it was? It worked. See, Izuku can fool even those as self-assured as the underground hero Erasure Head himself. He truly has mastered the art of gaslighting. If only he could feel good about it, because at the moment, with the softening and trusting tone the hero used, Izuku found it hard not to feel bad about playing with the hero's trust. Especially after the hero saved his life and even offered to train the boy. Izuku doesn't have to reply because his aunt comes out, a lot more cleaned up than before, no longer in unmatched dirty pajamas, but now in a clean casual outfit, her black curly hair up neatly in a bun, and any trace of alcohol unnoticeable and drowned out by perfume. When it really mattered, the woman sure knew how to clean herself up. Other than the odd redness to the woman's cheeks many had when they got drunk, she looked perfectly normal. At least she was aware enough to know being drunk didn't exactly look good in front of a hero. Clearly it wasn't the same in terms of being a good aunt. Izuku quickly made sure to close the door the half-sober woman left open. Before his mother could speak, Izuku spoke first. That was a quick shower. He discreetly made her aware of the lie he'd used, and it took a moment but the woman understood. Oh yes. When I heard a hero was at my door I finished as quick as I could. My name is Chihiro Midoriya, call me however you please. Izuku simply let her do the talking. A little stunned, she was such a good actor even when drunk. I mean, it had been a while since he saw his aunt smile so sweetly. The hero nodded at her words before continuing. Mrs. Midoriya, I'd like to talk to you about something I caught Midoriya trying earlier today. He went straight to the point. Izuku's casual attitude disappeared into a more nervous one. Though the hero likely assumed it was out of fear of how his aunt would feel knowing her nephew tried to kill himself, rather than because Izuku was afraid of how his body would be feeling after his aunt learned that he's the reason a hero is at their door. The woman pauses, glancing at Izuku before taking his hand into her own, scaring the sheet out of Izuku, who flinched but let her pull him to her side. Izuku wasn't fond of physical touch, despite throwing himself onto the hero earlier. Today he doesn't really do it. Usually when he's being touched it's to be hit. The boy stiffens, thankful the hero was under the impression the boy was nervous about a reason other than being hit. Really? My Izuku here doesn't tend to cause trouble? He didn't cause any trouble. Your son he. It was obvious the hero didn't like this part of this conversation. But who would like telling what seemed to be a loving aunt her nephew tried to jump off a building? Well, thankfully I caught him before he hit the ground, but he did not unfortunately attempt to jump off a nearby apartment complex. Izuku felt his aunt stiffen, her eyes widening for a moment before turning to him. She squeezed his hand tight, a flicker of anger flashing through her eyes at the knowledge it was her nephew's stupid decisions that brought a hero right to their front door. Or maybe she was angry it didn't work. But why? Izuku, baby W, why would you try such a thing? The woman pulled the boy into a tight hug as fake tears fell from the short, skinny woman's eyes. His aunt hasn't given him a hug since before she started drinking. If only it was real. Izuku's hands hung awkwardly to the side as he stared at the floor behind her nervously. Well. Izuku turned his gaze to the hero, silently pleading him to speak anything, so Izuku didn't say anything to F up his situation even more than he already had. But I've decided, since Izuku seems to be fine, I won't be calling authorities to send him anywhere for a mental evaluation. But I do need to make sure at least one of his guardians are aware, which is why I'm here. I also suggest getting him a therapist and maybe a psychiatrist to see if there's any medication that could help prevent this situation from ever repeating. Therapy? A psychiatrist? As if his aunt cared enough to waste her time getting him any of those. But the woman nodded her head, pretending to be heartbroken on the fact her Izuku tried to kill himself and needed that kind of help. Yes, of course, anything for my baby to be all right. She said as she wiped away her tears. The hero seemed to buy it. Well, that's it really. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Mrs. Midoriya. The hero said politely. No, thank you. It seems only Izuku picked up the venom in her voice as she held Izuku's hand so tight it hurt. With that the hero left, and Izuku was dragged inside by his aunt, who clearly wasn't planning on acting all sweet and motherly once they were in the apartment. Warning, physical abuse trigger warning warning. The moment that door closed his aunt snapped, throwing him onto the hallway floor. It seemed she'd sobered up since she wasn't slurring. I work my butt off to pay for the food you eat? Yeah right, she works her butt off for money to buy alcohol. Since Izuku occasionally steals to get parts for whatever he's fixing or working on, and her concerningly high budget on alcoholic drinks, there's barely enough money to buy a small pack of instant ramen. And even then he has to be careful with how much he eats so they don't run out of food until her next payday at the diner she works at. I always try to clean when I can. Maybe in whatever dreams she must have had of being a good aunt, but not in the real world. I even put you in a good school, and make sure to buy you all the shit you effing need. His fists ball up, in a mix of fear at the hits he knew were coming, and in anger at ignorance of this woman as she talked out of her butt. I've been a good aunt all for you. Izuku refrains from screaming back, telling her how she must be crazy if she actually believes she's been a good aunt. He refrains from telling her to look around, at the run-down state of the apartment, bottles empty and full of alcohol laying around, the dirty floor, and to smell the foul stench of alcohol that came from her unhealthy addiction. He wants to lift his shirt and ask her to tell him if a good aunt would give him even just one out of the many, now fading, small bruises he's got from her last episode. He wants to ask her when was the last time she talked to her nephew when she wasn't insulting or ordering him around. He wants to ask if she knows of any of his hobbies, if she knows that he likes to write notes on heroes, or how he's good with mechanics and enjoys building shit. He wants to ask her when the last time she did something other than drink. Izuku wants to ask the wretched woman all of this and watch her realize how wrong she was to label herself a good aunt. But for the sake of not getting himself into more trouble with the woman, he sat on the dirty floor, turning his gaze down to the floor as the woman grabbed an empty nearby liquor bottle and smashed it onto the table with the intention of scaring Izuku, and with the hard flinch Izuku gave it seemed to have worked. All for you. I do it all for you, you pathetic suicidal piece of ungrateful shit. His aunt stepped closer to him, grabbing him by the hair and forcing him to look at her, making him wince and stare at her frozen and wide-eyed. And how do you repay me? By bringing a filthy hero right to my diamond doorstep. With her spare hand she slaps Izuku across the cheek hard, leaving a red handprint you couldn't see well because of how dim it was, only the TV in the living room and the city lights from outside lighting up the place. I could be drinking right now, watching Dance Moms and relaxing after a long shitty day at work, but instead I have to deal with some hero spouting nonsense about getting you help. She slaps Izuku again before continuing, getting into his face. He cringed at the smell of alcohol on her breath. If he wants me to help you, I'll do it. But not with any of that therapeutic bullcrap. No, I'll give you the kind of help that won't ever have you trying something like that again. Izuku's anger fades into pure unease and fear at the sinister grin and the tone in her voice that was much too sweet to match it. Using the grip on his hair, his aunt drags Izuku with her to grab tape from the kitchen, cutting a piece off with her mouth and putting it on Izuku's mouth. Izuku's heart was racing. He was so scared the stinging on his cheek or the pain of having his hair pulled didn't register. He has never been so scared because his aunt has never went this far. She's never wore such a uncanny smile, nor put tape on his mouth. It was different. And not the good different. After taping Izuku's mouth shut, she let go of his hair, throwing the boy roughly onto the ground, giving him a hard kick making. His back hit the wall, making Izuku let out a muffled groan of pain and bringing tears to his eyes. The boy was shaking in fear, bringing his knees to his chest out of instinct to protect his stomach, which now likely had a big bruise in the middle from that kick. Then he heard it, the sound of another glass bottle being smashed against the table, only this time, the sound wasn't the only thing that scared him, it was how she still held onto the other unbroken half. She was going to use it as a weapon. His aunt had never done this. At most she'd kick, punch, slap, and yell. And of course occasionally throw things at him. But this? An actual weapon? One that could seriously hurt him? That was unpleasantly new. Izuku's eyes widened as tears of fear spilled from his eyes. He tried to apologize, but it was muffled by tape. When he tried to get up and run, she kicked him again, his head hitting the wall with a loud thud, momentarily making the terrified boy see stars and staining the wall with a bit of his own blood. Blinking away his daze, Izuku gets another kick to the stomach. He must have left it unprotected when he hit his head. And then his aunt stomped on his foot hard. She even let herself press weight onto it, making him let out a muffled scream and tears that followed. He pulled his leg to him as he cried. It was probably sprained since his foot was on its side when she stomped on it. Man, that one really hurt. Between the throbbing in his head and the sharp pain from his foot, he couldn't help but let out muffled sobs. Now Izuku knew why she'd taped his mouth shut. The woman was planning on making him scream tonight. Why are you crying? I bet it hurt, didn't it? Well, that's how I feel when you pull stupid shit like what you pulled today. I mean suicide? Come on, Izuku, could you have at least made it work? And bringing that hero here? You deserve every effing hit, you worthless piece of crap. Just like your mother, A selfish piece of sheet that wants to leave me behind. The woman pulls Izuku up by his hair, his right foot in which she'd stepped on, aching in pain that kept him crying. She looked down at her nephew, a cold, angry glare present as she did. Then swiftly, she swung the broken sharp glass bottle at his face, making him let out yet another pained muffled scream as he felt the glass cut him. Blood seeped from multiple little cuts around his face. Thankfully, no glass landed in his eyes as he squeezed them shut. You act just like her, you try to die the same way she did, you look identical to her, from your face to your smile it's driving me FNG crazy. Izuku slowly opens his eyes, the cruel woman above him was crying, an angry hurt expression present on her face. I loved her so much. I was always there for her, when we were kids up until her husband died because those but heroes couldn't do their jobs. Yet she still did it, she killed herself, leading me on making me think she was better, just to reveal it was a goodbye. It makes so mad. She let the boy fall to the ground, crying in frustration, hiding her face in her hands before glancing at Izuku. Her teary eyes narrowed at him as her sobs died down. She turned to one of the kitchen drawers, briefly checking it before pulling out a box cutter. By now Izuku knew what to expect. His eyes widened as his heart raced, snot, tears, and blood on his face as he looked up terrified of the woman he was supposed to be calling family. So maybe if I do this, I'll feel better, don't you think so too, Inko? Her emerald eyes were cold and teary, anger flashing through them as she called Izuku his mother's name with a shaky, trembling voice. All Izuku could do was close his eyes and brace himself. Warning: end of physical abuse, trigger warning warning. Izuku stared at the ceiling blankly, his body now patched up but sore. He's not sure what to think or feel about what just happened to him. His aunt kept referring to him with his mother's name as she gave him the beating of his life, and the entire time Izuku couldn't help but think she looked insane. Then there was the moment when Izuku didn't want to think about that anymore. It was making feel uneasy and uncomfortable at the memory of the beating that probably just gave him a fear of box cutters. The sharp pain on his now sprained foot alone was enough to remind him of the traumatizing moment. Instead of thinking about his aunt and what she'd just done to him, fighting through the pain, he gets off of the air mattress, he calls his bed and limps to his backpack, then to his worn-out desk where his homemade computer laid. That computer was Izuku's most prized creation. When he was 11 and stuff started breaking down around the house, Izuku began to steal from his aunt's purse to buy tools and parts to fix said things. Since they were kind of completely broke all the time, Izuku would go to a junkyard nearby for most of the parts he used, only going to stores for parts he knew he wouldn't find there. It wasn't open for the public, so Izuku would have to sneak in to grab anything he could find that could help repair what he needed to fix. But that same year Izuku found a very broken computer. Out of boredom the boy took it home, and after a lot of tampering, searching for parts, buying parts, and experimenting, Izuku brought the thing back to life. After that the boy continued to build his own things, just for sheets and giggles. Since that computer was one of his first creations, or as Izuku refers to them, his first baby, and by far one of his most useful ones since that's where he takes his college courses, Izuku deemed it his most precious baby. Izuku's good with mechanics since while his father was still alive, the man would teach Izuku his way around machinery, even buying him kits to sharpen the boy's skills. Izuku assumes it's because his father worked in the field that the man taught Izuku how to deal with such things. His father also made sure Izuku got private after-school tutoring and would take it upon himself to make at-home tests for him. Some might say his father was hard on Izuku, but the man made learning fun, and because of him Izuku's smart enough to take college courses and is able to repair any broken needed appliances in the house that his aunt certainly wouldn't have spent money on. Though Izuku's not sure why his father wanted to teach a 6-year-old algebra, he managed to do it. Anyways, Izuku pulls out his homework from his book bag and begins to work on it, ignoring the pain he felt every time he moved or how his hands, even when bandaged, still hurt when he held and moved his pencil. After a while Izuku finishes his work, tiredly putting everything away and limping across his messy room that looked more like a mechanic's workshop with all Might merch scattered and small signs of it being a boy's room, such as his dirty clothes hamper or the small bits of clothes and shoes scattered around. His room was rather messy, but he liked it that way. It was the only part of this med apartment that brought him ease. He limped to his bed, not bothering to shower or change clothes. Checking the time on his phone, he saw it was around 11 p.m. Rather early for Izuku, who'd usually stay up until at least 2 a.m. working on studying, his journal, or on one of his babies. But after the day he's had, he has no problem with leaving all that for the next day and getting the hell to sleep. When Izuku opened the door to his first PRD class, he was a little surprised at the silence in the classroom. Usually there would be loud chatter, but at the moment it was silent, a serious silence that made the atmosphere in the room pretty tense. Did Izuku miss something while he was with Eraserhead yesterday? A few students turned to see who entered the class, and they seemed a little disturbed at the sight of him. Makes sense. Considering the amount of damage his aunt inflicted on him, he looked like he'd fought a bear. He had a bandage wrapped around his head since his head hit the wall a little too hard, band-aids and patches on his face from his aunt smashing that glass bottle on his face, and his hands were bandaged from getting cut by the glass on the floor. And those were just the visible damages. After the woman grabbed that box cutter, he'd rather not think about it. The pain he felt every time he moved was enough of a reminder. Setting his thoughts aside, Izuku made his way to his seat, limping a bit as he did. His foot, although doing better seeing how it was only a sprain, was still pretty sore. As Izuku sat down, someone else entered the classroom, gaining everyone's attention. It was Katsuki. The fact the blonde had everyone's attention wasn't surprising to Izuku, it was how quickly people rushed to him, asking if he was okay and other concerned questions. That surprised Izuku. Just what the hell did Izuku miss? Yoba Kugu, are you doing good after yesterday? Why wouldn't he be doing good? I saw the attack on TV, that villain looked so scary. Did the blonde get attacked by a villain? You were hella brave. I would have been crying the moment that slimy thing latched onto me. Something slimy latched onto Katsuki? Izuku watched the students crowd Katsuki, very puzzled on what they were on about. Izuku wondered if he should tell them to stop bombarding the blonde with questions like that, or they'd get yelled at by him. He'd probably say something along the lines of him not being weak. But with how much those other students have hurt him, he chose to shut up and let them find out the hard way. Did it hurt Dash? Would you all shut the hell up? Seems Izuku wouldn't have had time to warn them either way. Do you extras take me for a weakling who can't handle a little villain attack? That shitty green sludge fucker caught me off guard, but if it didn't... Dash. The blonde is interrupted by Izuku, who now has an idea of what happened. Green sludge? Did it try to enter your mouth? Did it taste bad? Izuku stood as he spoke, ignoring the sharp pain that came with the sudden action, wide-eyed and nervous, because if it was the same villain Izuku encountered, then it shouldn't have happened at all since Shaggy, All Might captured the villain in that bottle. The class's eyes were all on him now, but for once Izuku didn't find himself caring. He had better things to worry about, like if the reason Katsuki got attacked was because he latched onto the number one hero's leg like an idiot with a death wish. The blonde stayed uncharacteristically silent, giving him a blank stare, his brows furrowed for a moment as he looked the boy up and down. He had a weird look on his face. The rest of the class simply looked at Izuku like he was stupid. Did you not hear? Yesterday some sludge villains suddenly attacked Bakugo. One of the girls started. Yeah, tried to get in his mouth and a big fire started too. Another boy added on. All Might was the hero that swooped in and saved him. It was all over the news. A second girl ended. How'd a hero wanna be like you not? Izuku tuned out whoever was about to insult him. So it was the same villain that attacked him, meaning this entire thing was his fault. He was the reason Katsuki got attacked. The thought didn't sit right with the boy, a ball of guilt forming in his stomach. And where was he when all this was happening? On a rooftop having a pity party because the symbol of peace didn't believe he could be a hero. How could he have been so careless? When he grabbed onto the hero, he didn't even think about the possibility of the bottle falling out of the hero's grasp and giving Katsuki the same suffocating feeling of having sludge down your throat. And it even caused a fire, all thanks to Izuku. Izuku's guilt-driven thoughts are cut short when Katsuki grabs him by the collar of his uniform, making Izuku wince from the sudden movement since his body wasn't exactly in its peak condition. Izuku is interrupted by the blonde's loud, angry voice. though the glare he was shooting Izuku would have had him quiet even without his interruption. "You heard me." "No, Izuku really didn't. So you can shove those shitty questions up your DMN butt?" Did the blonde think Izuku was mocking him? "No, Kaken, I'm not trying to make fun of you or anything. I just wanted to know if I had the right villa dash." Izuku's attempts at calming things down didn't seem to work because Katsuki began to make mini explosions on his hand threateningly. "You think I'm stupid enough to fall for that, shitty Deku? Seriously, I was just trying to make sure I knew what attacked Y dash." Once again, Izuku is interrupted. "It was all over the Demon News. There's no way you don't know, your aunt is always watching that sheet." Izuku wasn't able to watch the news seeing as how he was busy getting the butt beating of his life. And maybe 10 years ago his aunt watched the news, trying to keep him and his mom safe from any dangers, but honestly, now Izuku's sure the woman would have loved it if that sludge villain really did end his shitty life. The boy stays silent. There's not much Izuku could say to convince the blonde he didn't mean it in a mocking way without giving away why he's got so many bandages on him. "What, can't think of any excuses now, Deku?" The blonde paused, staring down at Izuku, eyes narrowing before deciding to show mercy to the boy. "How new? I'll let you off the demon hook, but I don't want to hear you yapping about this ever again. And if you do, I'll make sure to PS this on your demon grave after I blow you up." The blonde looked around, raising his angry, threatening voice again. "And that goes for the rest of you extras too. Not another demon word, and tell any other extras that ask that I'm perfectly effing fine." The class seems tense, nobody daring to say anything, still frozen and crowded at the door. With a huff, the blonde lets go of Izuku harshly, sending him onto the floor. Izuku thankfully didn't land on anything he hurt. The blonde makes his was to his seat, sitting down and keeping his head high. "Sorry I'm late, Key. Why's everyone at the door?" And Midoriya get off the floor. Seems the teacher that nobody noticed was gone has arrived. Funny how he asks Izuku to get off the floor rather why he's on it, but the quirkest man probably already knows it's Katsuki's doing and simply doesn't give a DMN. The teacher gets everyone in their seats and starts the day's lesson, but Izuku's mind is elsewhere. His mind is full of guilt-filled thoughts, fueled by the knowledge that the reason Katsuki got attacked was because of him. Katsuki was in fact not fine. Nobody else seemed to notice, but for the rest of the week the blonde was quieter than usual. He didn't even pick on Izuku. Izuku assumed with how he acted out on him Tuesday morning the blonde would surely burn him a little. But it seems Katsuki really did mean it when he said Izuku was off the hook. But Kaken's petty, he doesn't let things go so easily. Some could say Izuku could be overthinking things, looking into the lines a little too much. But the timing of all of this behavior starting just aligns too well. Or maybe Izuku's just trying to find a reason to back up the feeling in his gut that something's wrong with the blonde. Either way, guilt at the possibility that Katsuki getting attacked was his fault, which he looked online, it was not at him. Which is why Izuku is currently waiting in an empty music room 3 to be exact, during after-school hours. He left a note in the blonde's locker, asking to meet an hour after school ended to talk. Izuku knows it probably won't work, and that the blonde probably threw it away the moment he saw the Izuku's name on it, but it was worth a try. Anything to shut up that guilt-driven voice in the back of Izuku's head. Katsuki should have been here 20 minutes ago, but Izuku doesn't mind waiting another hour or two if he has to. It's not like he has anywhere better to be. Especially not his home. To pass the time, Izuku had been texting the erasure hero that offered to mentor him. They got in touch the day after that whole suicide sheet and planned to start Izuku's training Saturday aka tomorrow. Currently the two are trying to set a schedule. Eyebags, Saturday 1 p.m.? Yes, Izuku named the hero Eyebags in courtesy of the hero's very visible eyebags. He debated the name Insomnia with legs but decided on a simpler name. All Might's #1 fan. Yeah, that works just fine. Thumbs up. All Might's #1 fan. Is it gonna be weekly? Eyebags, yeah. The hero doesn't seem to be a man of many words. All Might's #1 fan. Then weekly it is, smiley face. Eyebags. Can you handle going multiple times a week? Of course he can. He can put off fixing up his babies for 2 or 3 days, and those college courses he's got, he can just do after training. Plus, The more time out of his apartment, the less time he has to deal with his aunt, who has officially given him a fear of box cutters. All Might's #1 fan. I could handle the entire week if I had to. This was meant to be a joke, it seems the hero didn't catch it. Eyebags, perfect. Take Sunday off. Izuku didn't have it in him to correct the hero. He's sure he'll be fine, he'll just have to manage his time with a bit more care. All Might's #1 fan, sounds great. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow at Eyebags, my place. I'll pick you up. Izuku stares at his phone wide-eyed. He was going to train at the Erasure Head's house? Where he lives? Izuku's going to be able to see where his favorite hero lives and train with him at the same time. That's so cool. Did the hero say he was going to pick the boy up? After what happened after the first time the hero simply stood at the door, Izuku could never let his aunt know he's in contact with the hero. Nor could he let the hero know the woman didn't actually agree to let Izuku see the him. The Erasure hero may or may not be under the impression Izuku asked his aunt if he could train with the hero and that the woman agreed. That's besides the point. Izuku needs to make sure the hero doesn't come to his house tomorrow. Auntie Chihiro might be working during the day, but just in case he'll keep the hero far away from the apartment. All Might's #1 fan. That's fine. Just send me your address. And if you can't do that, I'm sure we can meet somewhere else where we can meet up. Smiley face. Ebigs. All Might's #1 fan. I know a park I could wait at. Then after, I'll know where to go so you won't have to pick me up. Amazed face. Ebigs. So dry it. Well, Izuku heard some girls saying the quiet ones are always the wisest, and the hero is pretty wise, at least in Izuku's eyes. Eyebags. For someone who screamed, F All Might, on a rooftop, you sure don't have a fitting name. That is the most the hero has ever said in a text, and Izuku can't help but agree. See? What did he tell you? The quiet ones are always the wisest. Though he should really change that name. He had it set as his contact name years ago when he was still fond of the hero that almost led to his death. But what should it be? He's not actually gonna put his name, that's too boring. How about we better? Perfect. The plant is green like his hair. Sure, any other plant is too, but this one is funnier as a name. Eyebags. Honestly, even that's better than All Might. Izuku laughs. Seems the Erasure hero isn't a fan of the symbol of peace either. Before Izuku gets the chance to respond, he hears a small explosion go off. He turns off his phone, looking up from where he sat on one of the students' desks. Did you call me here to waste my time laughing at your phone like a effing idiot? It seems Katsuki actually came. The blonde crosses his arms, standing near the desk Izuku sat at, looking down at the boy. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, yet he still came. Izuku almost smiles at the thought. It's not every day Katsuki actually listens to Izuku. No. I just noticed that you've been acting a little off. Ever since that villain attack, is Everett dash. The blonde doesn't seem to appreciate Izuku's concern because his annoyance becomes full-blown anger. I don't need your shitty pity, Deku. Everyone else shut the hell up about the subject, why won't you? I'm fine. I'm not weak, I'm perfectly effing fine. The boy grabs Izuku by the arm, right where his mother. Sheet. Izuku hisses in pain, wincing at the tight rough hold on his arm. The way Katsuki heated up his hand didn't help. The blonde seemed like he was about to start yelling but paused at Izuku's reaction. His anger faded as he stared down at the smaller boy, a flicker of confusion flashing through Izuku's mind. What the hell was that reaction? I've never even hurt you there. Izuku's eyes widened for a moment, his heart rate speeding up. So he noticed that I hurt myself by accident. What a load of crap. It seems Katsuki thought the same thing. Is that the same excuse you're gonna use to explain the how banged up you are? Especially on Tuesday? And the shitty attempt at bandaging yourself. Oh yeah, Izuku had a bunch of band-aids big and small on his face, along with his hands being wrapped up due to being cut up by the glass that was on the floor the night his aunt went ballistic on him, and there was also the gauze he had to wear like a bandana around his head. And since the subject was brought up, Izuku's attempt at treating himself was just fine. For a beginner, he's used to bruises and minor cuts, not the kind of shit his aunt did to him. Yes? And I treated my wounds just fine. He muttered that last part to himself. Maybe Katsuki isn't the only petty one in the room. Bullshit. You were FING limping as well, on Tuesday I mean. You also made a few trips to the bathroom a day and you still are. I ignored it of course, it's none of my business and I don't give a DMN. So why ask? Izuku wanted to say that but he didn't, letting the blonde who still had an iron grip on his arm talk. But since we're already here and I'm curious. The blonde looked down at Izuku, as unreadable as ever. Izuku stared back up at him nervously. He wanted to see the damage, what Izuku had over his wonderfully wrapped bandages that many might confuse to have been done by a professional. That must be why he actually came, to see what the hell Izuku's been hiding. For what? Did curiosity really bring the blonde all the way here? To see Izuku, who he hates? Stop wasting my demon time and show me. Izuku doesn't know where it came from but a flicker of anger crossed him. Why do you care? It's not like he hasn't hurt Izuku. Hell, Katsuki even told him to kill himself. So what right does he have to suddenly care? To go up to Izuku and order him to show him his injuries for the sake of his curiosity? I'm curious. The blonde narrows his eyes, furrowing his brows. Izuku, feeling brave, continued. Kaken, you don't get to order me around for the sake of your own curiosity. I'm quirkless, not a DMN dog. The blonde seemed a little surprised that Izuku actually talked back, then the blonde got angry. Just effing you show me. I gotta make Sue, just show me now deck dash dot. The blonde paused, letting out an annoyed groan and sliding his hand down his face. Please, Izuku, just show me? Katsuki sounded rather desperate, his voice not angry, nor threatening. Why does he want to know if Izuku's hurt so bad? Izuku would have continued on how saying his name for once, that doing the bare minimum, still didn't give him the right to go ordering him around. But he didn't technically order him this time, he asked, even said please. That or maybe Izuku's just a little down bad so when his name came out of the blonde's mouth for the first time in years, in a non-mocking way, Izuku folded. That I'm sorry but I can't. Or at least he wanted to. But the thing is, the injuries on his arms that they aren't normal cuts. His aunt let's just say she got a little creative, so creative Izuku's not sure he should show anybody in general. Deku, Izuku, please, I won't tell anyone if you're really. The blonde trailed off again, running a hand through his hair, obviously frustrated. Just show me. Dash. He cuts himself off, lowering his tone. It seems he's not used to being calm, especially to Izuku. Just show me. Please. He won't tell, right? Or judge? Or suspect his aunt and snitch? I mean, this is Katsuki, he'll probably drop it after getting what he wants. He really should keep this to himself, especially from Katsuki of all people. After all he said to Izuku, and put him through, it's safe to say telling the blonde would be a dumb move. It'd be like clicking one of those tempting but obviously fake ads, ignoring any warnings your phone gives you of the offer being absolute bull, and giving away all your valuable information. You'd be FNG yourself over, ignoring all warnings that were right there, for something you might not even get. Yet Izuku finds himself sliding his sleeve up. Because something about love can make one blind to making stupid decisions, like trusting their own bully with the knowledge of what's under his sleeves. It's silent as Izuku unwraps the amazingly wrapped gauze on his arm, and a louder silence follows once the blonde lays his eyes on the cuts. His eyes widen and he looks shocked. You won't tell her. Izuku is interrupted by Katsuki. Who did that to you? Izuku froze at the serious tone that not even someone as observant as Izuku could decipher. Izuku stays silent. What's he supposed to say to that? The truth? Say, it was my aunt, and screw himself over? Love made him dumb, but not that dumb. Was it one of the extras? The taller boy sounded pretty scary when he said that line. Funny how Katsuki bullies Izuku, goes as far as to burn him and tell him to kill himself, but draws the line when someone else does it. But honestly, with what's on Izuku's arms, if he was the blonde he'd draw the line there too. Or was it you? The blonde asked, uncharacteristically quiet and hesitant, as if he was scared of the answer. Now Izuku knew why the blonde was so insistent. He must have assumed it was self-harm he was hiding. But why would he care if Izuku cut himself? He suicide baited him for FS sake. Well, it wasn't me, but Clearly you're doing good, so I'm gone dash. Izuku's attempt at escape fails. Dagif dash. Izuku, who the hell carved literal insults on your arm? Are you hiding more? It seemed the blonde was aware of how quickly Izuku folded at him using his name. Anyways, the answer to his question is yes. No, it's just the arms, but it's fine dash. Izuku, does this sheet look fine to you? Izuku wants to complain about him being loud, but the blonde grabs his arm, lifting it to Izuku's face. It didn't look fine. His aunt carved words onto his skin, leaving it red and bruised. She went pretty deep so it would scar. There were 3 words: worthless, quirkless, along with other slashes. Well, that not really. Izuku, who the F did it? Izuku looks up at Katsuki, narrowing his eyes before looking away. Why do you care if someone's hurting me if you yourself do it too? Do I have to remind you of how you suicide baited me? You of all people don't have the right to act like you give a damn or order me to tell you who hurt me or anything about my life in general. Kaken, you don't get to act like you care, because you clearly never have. Katsuki's eyes widened for a moment. His mouth opened but nothing came out. For once Izuku's not the speechless one. Izuku harshly pulled his arm away from the blonde's hold, holding back tears. He wasn't sure why he wanted to cry. Maybe it was because saying the fact out loud hurt his heart. What? Surprised I talked back for once and didn't do what you say like a dog. Izuku couldn't help but continue. When else is he gonna get the other boy to shut up and listen to Izuku? That day, the day you told me to kill myself, I realized that I'm not as weak as you say I am. Because I have gone through so much shit, including enduring your daily torment, but I've still pulled through. Despite you and everyone else telling me I can't be a hero, I still believed I could do it, and I'm gonna start training. Training for you, eh? And no matter what you do to me, or what you say, I won't give up. Because you know what, Kaken? Izuku paused, trying to keep tears from falling before continuing, looking into Katsuki's ruby eyes with raw determination, pent-up anger, and resilience. I can be a hero. I'm not worthless, useless, or weak, and I'm certainly not effing Deku. I'm Izuku Midoriya, the boy that's put up with your bullshit, and so much more, the boy who has never let it break his will to become a hero. And the boy that wants, and will save others with a smile. Izuku screams through tears. He's had enough of the blonde. He won't let Katsuki hold him back, and he'll make sure he knows it. He feels his head throb for a moment, much like it did when he was falling off the building from before and when he was yelling at his aunt. But like before, he ignores it as it only lasts a moment. The boy grabs his bag, not bothering to rebandage his arm before rolling down his sleeve as he walks to the classroom door, opening it and turning to look back at Katsuki with a cold glare, one neither Katsuki nor Izuku knew he could make as he ends the conversation with a voice filled with venom as he adds one last statement. And by the way, Kaken, you may have the quirk of a hero, but you certainly don't have the heart of one. You use your quirk to hurt, not to save. You know who else does that? A villain. If you want to be a hero, I suggest you do some soul searching and try to become a better FING person. Izuku didn't wait to see his reaction. He slammed the door on the boy and made his way out of the school. Only no more tears fall, because Izuku doesn't feel sad, he feels amazing. He feels like the weight of Katsuki has been lifted off his shoulders. As he yelled at the blonde, as he said it out loud, it seems his heart finally realized that the Katsuki it loved was gone, and that he was now an egotistical JRK that bullied him into almost giving up on the dream that kept him alive. At that moment, any love Izuku had for Katsuki Bokogu left his heart.